Okay.
Is it scripted? I mean, do you recommend having a certain approach?
Well, I think it depends on the person. If you're a brand new salesperson, certainly a little bit of scripting is important, okay? But you don't want to come across like a salesperson. Before you even pick up that phone, there's a lot of work that has to happen. First of all, you got to know your value. You got to believe in what you're talking about,
yes.
And you got to know that you're the best of the best of the best, and that you can deliver the goods. Because if there's any doubt, it's going to come through in your voice.
And you know, that is so key what you're saying. You have to know in your heart of hearts, because it comes across in your tone.
Absolutely.
It comes across in you, in how you hesitate. It comes across in everything.
Yep.
If you don't believe in your heart that you actually are the best.
Absolutely. And then you have to put in some intention, what I call intention. You've got to create the intention of who you're going to be on this call, right? So I recommend getting a headset. I recommend standing up, your body, your physically, in your diaphragm. I recommend lowering your voice, particularly if you've got a very high-pitched voice, because what you're really talking to, and we won't get into details about that, is you're talking to their objections, which is really their reptilian brain, which if you soften your voice, you can actually be heard. If you have a little bit deeper voice, people remember my voice for whatever reason.
Yeah,
I call people 2 years later, and they remember my voice. I go into this like almost persona, and it actually goes even lower than what it is now. And so it's a level of respect, it's a level of almost comfort, that would be the word that I would use. So even before you pick up that moment of truth that you pick up the phone, what goes on in here is going to determine whether or not you're going to continue or not.
And you know, just talking about your voice for a minute, there's so many layers in this. So talking about your voice, I think particularly for women, we have a slightly higher pitch to our voice. And I know lots of women, and I'm sure you do too, you know, it's natural when we get excited, our voice gets, you know, raises a little bit, as opposed to men, when they get excited, their voice tends to go lower.
Lower, yeah.
And so it would be good for women to be cognizant of exactly what happens to them when they get anxious or excited, and be really mindful of monitoring their voice, their tonality.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And you can even have, what I used to do in the very beginning while I was learning, was I would do fake calls to myself. So I would go and I would call my number and leave a message and sound what I sound like, and then say, oh no, I don't like that, or whatever. And most people don't practice. It's amazing to me how few people actually practice their skill. People go in and do sales presentations when I do presentation skills, and they talk, they're salespeople. I say, how many times do you practice it before you go in? Oh no, we're just finishing, you know, the PowerPoint as we're going in down the hallway kind of thing. And I'm like, well, how can you come across really super professional and differentiate yourself from anybody else if you don't practice? 95% of what happens is before you even get to where you're going, right? As you know in a presentation. So my belief is it all happens before you pick up that phone. So if you have a clear intention, you know your value proposition, what makes you unique, what's going to have you different, be ready to handle objections, because people will put up objections. Most people are on automatic pilot, and it's an automatic no. Right? So to get past that, so, you know, if they say, well, they don't have time, well, perhaps another time. Or you can ask questions, I ask questions like, well, do you do your training or your coaching ad hoc, or do you look at it strategically once a year? When would be a better time for me to call? Sometimes I'll get, would a telephone appointment be better? Or I'll ask permission to send them something, when would be a good time to follow up? Always giving them permission to tell me what to do next. So the next steps are in their ballpark versus me trying to tell them.